Hi everyone and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul and today we're going to be continuing our series covering the CES 2012 Innovation Award winning products. Today I'm going to be featuring this MSI GTX 680 Lightning video card. I'll be sharing an overview as well as some benchmarks. Let's start off with a closer look at the retail box for some specifications. This is a 2 GB frame buffer card, so you get 2 gigs of GDDR5 memory that's running along at 1502 MHz. This card is fully PCI Express Gen 3 compatible, so if you're running a Ivy Bridge processor currently or any other PCI Express Gen 3 device, you can connect it up and give yourself some additional PCI Express bandwidth. Of course, also DirectX 11 compatible and features the GTX 680 GPU, also known as codename GK104. This also features a custom cooler as well as the fact that it is unlocked for overclocking. It is overclocked out of the box as well, and I should mention some of those specs. This card will run at a base GPU clock of 1111 MHz. It will boost clock up to 1176 MHz. That's one of the features of the 600 series, is that it can actually automatically overclock the GPU. And actually in my testing, this card was running at 1201.9 MHz, so actually over 1200 MHz right out of the box with no tweaking done by me. It features a 12-phase PWM design, also features triple overvoltage and the custom Twin Frozr IV cooler. Now, some of the excellent features of this card are all designed around overclocking, so with that in mind, we have unlocked digital power so that you can do voltage control as well as lots of other different controls, and of course you can use the MSI overclocking utility to handle that if you're interested, of course. It features the unlocked BIOS, enhanced power design, which provides up to 80% more power delivery for the GPU, as well as the other components such as the memory, digital PWM power control. They've used some really high-end components on this video card, such as actual copper MOSFETs with double-sided coolers to help them run cooler, of course. High-C capacitors, or highly conductive capacitors, also golden solid-state chokes, and also dark solid capacitors with a 10-year lifespan. So really high-end components that they're using in this card. This is kind of their flagship card for the GTX 600 series, so they've really gone all out with this. A little bit more over here on the voltage options that you have available to you. First of all, you get voltage checkpoints directly on the card, so you can use a multimeter to read those directly. Triple overvoltage, again, for the GPU, the memory, and the PLL. And again, that MSI afterburner overclocking utility, which is really popular for MSI cards or any video card overclocking in general, I should say. It's a really popular utility. It's been around for quite some time. You also get triple temperature monitors to monitor the temperature of the GPU, the memory, and the VRM. Again, all of that available with the MSI afterburner overclocking utility. They also have a GPU Reactor, and this is kind of a cool device. It's right behind the GPU on the card itself. I'll show you a closer look at that. It glows blue when the card is on, which is kind of a neat visual effect. But what it's actually doing is it's providing capacitance right next to the GPU. So you get an available power close to the GPU, so if you go into a more stressful situation for the GPU, that power is there and readily available to deliver to the GPU. So compared to the reference design, which can give you up to 1,410 millivolts, I should say, the GPU Reactor will give you up to 4,230, which clearly is much more. Moving on down here, some more information about the Twin Frozr IV thermal design cooler. We got a peekaboo window right there, but you can't really see much because the anesthetic bag's on there. So 8mm heat pipes help transfer the heat from the GPU out into the fin array. You also have dust removal technology, and I have a quick little video demonstration of that. Basically, when you first power on the card, for the first 30 seconds, the fans spin in reverse. And the idea there is that by spinning the fan backward, it will eject some of the dust that might have collected on there, help keep the fans nice and free of dust and debris, and keep your video card running at a cool temperature for a longer period of time before you need to clean it. You also have a special propeller blade technology in the fans as well, a unique structure to provide plenty of airflow. And as I'm talking about all this stuff, I should mention I have tested this card, and all of these cooling techniques for the components they've used as well as the cooler, extremely effective. This is one of the coolest running GTX 680s that I have personally tested. Moving along, we have the propeller blade technology, of course. Here's a quick thermal comparison of the Twin Frozr IV cooler to the reference cooler, and this is just about what I saw. I was actually seeing temperatures in the 50s as compared to the reference cooler, which had temperatures up in the 70s. So I had about a 20 degrees Celsius difference in my comparisons, and also, of course, runs much quieter than the reference design as well. I believe there's a little bit more information up here on the right, if you guys want to take a look, about the high-density fins, the dual form-in-one heat sinks, and the nickel-plated copper base to provide better contact area with the GPU. Again, I'm going to be taking this out of the box, I promise, in just a moment to give you guys a closer look at the card itself. Here are some features and specifications on the back. This is a 600 series card, so it does support, of course, NVIDIA's GPU Boost, adaptive V-Sync. You can actually push 4 monitors out of this single video card, so you can connect 4 displays. You can use 3 for gaming, and you can use the 4th as a companion display. All these other NVIDIA technologies integrated as well as the detailed specs and system requirements. And I should mention, for power, you do want a minimum of 650 watt or greater system power supply. Let's take a look inside the box. Inside the box, we have another box, as is often the case with video cards. Okay, so here is packaging, of course. Here is the GTX 680 Lightning video card. We'll finish with a close look at that. Actually, we'll finish with the benchmarks. But in between now and then, I will show you the accessories, which I'm successfully dropping all over the place. Make sure I'm not losing any of these. All right. We have some power adapters. We have some voltage leads. We have a really, really long SLI adapter ribbon cable. All right, let's start with this guy. Certificate of Quality and Stability. MSI has been designing their military Class 3 spec products, such as video cards and motherboards, for quite a while. It comes with this certificate indicating that all of the components on the board are rated to military standards for longevity as well as performance. All right, here is your MSI GTX Lightning driver and utility. You should not use the driver on this disk. You should download the latest driver. We're currently running NVIDIA's 314.07, I believe. Let me double check. Yes. 314.07 Forsware drivers, which were just recently released to support games such as Crysis 3. Here's your GTX 680 Lightning manual with some getting started information, some more details about the card, as well as a quick walkthrough of installation. Here is a quick user's guide. This is a bit more generic for video cards in general. If you are curious about some advice on installing this card, you can check out our How to Build a Computer video series, of course. Here's an adapter. This is a DVI to VGA adapter, so if you need a VGA connection, you can use that adapter if you have an older monitor, for example. You get 3 sets of voltage leads here, so these actually plug directly into the board and provide you the handy little voltage read points that negates the use or the necessity to use soldering if you want to do direct voltage readings, which is very handy. They've provided a couple little adapter cables here, so these are actually 6-pin PCI Express to 8-pin PCI Express power adapter cables. Actually, why don't I pop this out so you guys can take a closer look, since this, if you do use this, it might actually be visible. So there's a bit of heat shrink on there to keep it a bit more contained. And basically that will let you use the 8-pin power connection that is necessary, because there are 2 8-pin power connections on this card. That's compared to the reference design 680, which uses 2 6-pins. And finally, wow, super, super long SLI bridge right there. It's flexible, it has an MSI logo on it, and it's black, so it looks quite nice. And depending on the positioning of the cards and the spacing in your motherboard, this should be able to cover just about any type of motherboard configuration. I actually kind of want to measure this. This looks like it could actually spread across like 7 or 8 slots, I think. But anyway, next, onto the video card. Okay, I did line up this SLI bridge because it's the longest one I've ever seen. This is actually can reach all the way from your number 1 slot all the way down to the number 7 slot. So even on a motherboard, for instance, that's got 4-way SLI capability with 2 slot spacing, you can actually reach from the top slot all the way down to the very bottom slot. So very flexible SLI adapter. Okay, onto the video card itself. So here is the MSI GTX 680 Lightning. You can see right there on the front the Twin Frozr IV cooler. It's got a black and yellow color scheme, kind of a racing theme design from my perspective. And then look at the back, of course. We have a black back plate on the board as well. And the PCB, also black. So from a color scheme perspective, this video card looks very nice and very clean, I will say. So let's start here on the front, and if I can quickly liberate my ruler here, we can give a quick measurement. Okay, so measuring from the bracket, we have, I'll say a little bit longer than 11.5 inches, maybe right about 11.5. Going to the end of the cooler itself, I would give yourself a little bit more space than that, just to make sure you've got plenty of room in your case. And then we'll start here with look at the cooler. So we have, again, the black and yellow shroud going over the top, MSI and Twin Frozr logo right there. Another MSI logo on the side, and that is the view of the card that you would get in most cases. This side, you can also see one of the heat pipes protruding right there. Here are the two individual fans, again, 100 millimeter, 10 centimeter fans. I must remember my metric calculations, they can be so confusing. And then here's a look at the heat pipe design coming out from the GPU itself. Now the GPU itself, of course, is located right beneath that reactor right there. So we have several heat pipes which are feeding right into there, into the base plate, which is making contact with the GPU, feeding the heat out into the fin arrays where it can be easily dispersed by the airflow provided from the downdraft from those fans, which is going to be pushing air down towards the fins in all situations, except for that 30 seconds when they spin backwards to give yourself some dust removal. Down here at the bottom, underneath the MSI Lightning logo, is actually something that you don't see very often. MSI and Lightning. They've actually specifically branded the PCB of the card itself with the type of card it is. That's kind of unique. We have the PCI Express Gen 3 slot right there. It's going to be backwards compatible with PCI Express Gen 2 or 2.1, so don't worry if you don't have Gen 3 up and running yet. You can still run this card. It's a bandwidth increase from PCI Express Gen 2 to Gen 3, and real-world situations and tests that I've seen, you're only going to see like maybe a couple percentage points difference going from Gen 2 to Gen 3. So don't worry about that one. Here's a look at the back plate. Of course, providing some protection for the components on the back, also providing a bit of a cleaner look. You also have some LEDs, blue LEDs that can light up along here, and those are going to indicate the load on the GPU, so more LEDs will light up if there's greater load. You also have, of course, the GPU Reactor right here. It does provide a little bit more bulk to the card on this side, so bear in mind if you are going to be going with a multi-card configuration, you might want to go with triple slot spacing on your motherboard to provide a little bit more space. Again, this will light up and glow blue, and it provides a bunch of extra capacitance to be able to deliver power directly to the GPU when needed. We do, of course, have full compatibility with SLI, and this being a GTX 680. We have two SLI fingers protruding right there. You can, of course, set this up in two-way, three-way, or four-way SLI. Taking a look at this end of the card, you will note that it is a bit taller than most typical reference video cards, which will typically only get up to about the height of the PCI bracket right there. So a bit more extra space right there. In most situations, that's not going to be a big deal because most cases have plenty of room in that direction. Usually width is more of a concern, and this is again a two-slot space card, although again bear in mind that this reactor part on the back will provide a little bit more bulk to the your ability to set two of these cards directly next to each other. Let's take a look at the video outputs on the back. We do have 4 of them. These are standard as far as the GTX 680 is concerned. So we have a couple DVI connectors right there. Those are both dual-link DVI, and they can handle resolutions up to 2560 by 1600. Bear in mind here that the top one is digital only, that's DVI-D, whereas the lower one is DVI-I. So if you are going to use that digital to analog adapter that's included in the box, go with the lower connection right there because it won't work with the upper one. You also have, of course, the HDMI as well as DisplayPort connections, additional digital video out connectors, of course. And you will also note that these connectors are also gold-plated, which gives it a nice look, as well as we got the blue on the DVI there, which you don't see too often. Usually DVI is white, but MSI was like, we wanted it to be blue. And it kind of goes with the theme overall, kind of the black, yellow, and blue theme of the card in general. All right, let's talk about power requirements. Once again, MSI is recommending a 650 watt power supply. We have 2 8-pin PCI Express power connectors right there. So again, make sure that your power supply is beefy enough to handle this card, especially if you're going to go with more than one. And again, that's compared to the GTX 680 standard, which has 2 6-pins. All right, here are your voltage read points. Again, the handy little plug type ones that don't require soldering, so you can connect those voltage leads to that and get your voltage readings. You can also see a bit of cable right there, and that's simply providing power to the fans from the board itself. We also have some a bit of a a base plate right here, so you can see that right there. That's actually providing a bit more rigidity to the motherboard. I'm sorry, not the motherboard, to the video card, and it's also providing some extra heat dispersion to some of the power delivery elements that you see. Next up, we're going to take a look at some, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I wanted to give a quick comparison here to the reference design of this card. So here's a reference GTX 680. So there's kind of a side-by-side so you can see size difference. Again, MSI has gone with a much larger amount of thermal mass here to dissipate the heat, and that is borne out in the testing. Actually, my test, 59 degrees Celsius was the hottest that the GPU reading ever got on this video card, which is really nice. And again, it averaged about 20 degrees Celsius cooler than the reference design GTX 680. And you probably can't tell quite as well because this does have the backplate on it, but when we compare the PCBs, you can see that this is the kind of reference design PCB for the GTX 680, and on the MSI, of course, we have, again, full custom solution. So MSI has gone really, really custom for this card. They've redesigned the PCB, they've redesigned the cooler, and again, since I've tested it, they've done a really good job. All right, I've referenced our tests often enough. Let's now take a look at them. A few more detailed specs here before we jump into the benchmarks. Again, this is GPU on this GTX 680 is the GK104. It's based on the 28 nanometer manufacturing process, codename Kepler by NVIDIA. It's also got 32 ROPs. It's got 1,536 CUDA cores. It supports DirectX 11.1. It also has that 2,048 megabytes of GDDR5 memory on a 256-bit bus. That gives you total memory bandwidth of 192.3 gigabytes per second. The GPU clock, once again, is running at 1,111 megahertz. It can boost up to 1,176. And in my experience, the boost that is listed is often a little bit on the conservative side. So this card was actually running at just over 1,200 megahertz in all of my tests. GPU temperature, again, topped out at about 59. For the most part, it was running in the mid-50s, 55 degrees or so. And next up, let's take a look at the benchmark. At the test bed that I'll be running these benchmarks on. We have an Asus Rampage 4 Formula motherboard, a 3960X processor from Intel. We are running at PCI Express Gen 3. That it was confirmed by using the little NVIDIA utility that you can use to force Gen 3 mode on an X79 chipset motherboard. We also have 4 gigabyte G.Skill Trident X memory sticks in quad channel mode running at 1600 speed, a SanDisk Ultra Plus 256 gig SSD, and a 1350 watt power supply by Thermaltake. So those are our benchmarks, and hopefully that gives you guys a better idea of the performance, both thermally as well as raw GPU power that you can get by going with the overclocked MSI GeForce GTX 680 Lightning. I'm Paul with Newegg TV, and if you enjoyed today's video, you can find more on our Newegg YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you all next time on Newegg TV.